For most of human history, the stars had been silent. They were bright dots in the night sky, distant, unreachable, and harmless. Scientists sent signals, dreamers sent messages, and many hoped someone out there might one day respond. No one expected the first reply would come as fire. It started quietly. One night, astronomers noticed a strange pattern in the deep space data. A series of pulses, rhythmic and sharp like a heartbeat. It wasn't random. It was coming from a single direction, somewhere beyond the edge of the solar system. At first, everyone thought it was a natural event, but within hours, the readings grew stronger. Something was moving fast and heading toward Earth. Governments were alerted. Satellites focused their lenses. The world held its breath. When the images came in, no one could believe what they were seeing. A fleet, not of meteors or debris, but ships. Gigantic, metallic, structured ships moving in perfect formation. There was no doubt anymore. We were not alone. At first, world leaders tried to communicate. Every global space agency broadcasted messages in hundreds of languages and signals, hoping for a peaceful answer. But no message ever came back. The fleet kept coming, and when it finally stopped near the edge of the moon's orbit, it didn't wait. Without warning, bright streaks of light flashed across the sky. Satellites went dark one after another. Power grids failed. Then came the blasts, silent from space but devastating on Earth. The world shook. Cities went dark. Skies turned red for a moment and then faded into silence. People panicked. No one knew who the attackers were or what they wanted. Within hours, social media was filled with confused voices, shaky videos of explosions, blurry images of strange lights in the clouds, messages asking, "Is this the end?" But beneath the chaos, something else was happening, something the invaders didn't expect. Humanity had been preparing quietly for decades. Not for an alien invasion, of course, but for survival in a world that had always been on edge. Every country had hidden defense plans, emergency shelters, underground networks. And when the first strikes hit, those old secret systems came alive. Deep under a mountain somewhere in the northern hemisphere, an emergency council gathered. Representatives from every major nation, connected through a secure channel, watched the destruction in silence. One of them finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy. "They've made their move. It's time to activate Helios." Helios was not a weapon. It was a plan. A global defense protocol designed for the worst possible event. It united every defense satellite, radar array, and orbital sensor into one coordinated system. Within hours, Earth's scattered technology began to talk to each other like a single mind. Meanwhile, on the surface, life was chaos. People ran for shelter. Cities struggled to stay connected, and yet, amidst the fear, there was also courage. Firefighters kept rescuing people from collapsing buildings. Doctors worked in dark hospitals using flashlights and backup generators. Pilots volunteered to fly in dangerous skies to evacuate civilians. Humanity, in its most fragile moment, refused to give up. Up in orbit, the alien fleet stayed silent. They had stopped firing as if observing what their attack had done. Perhaps they believed Earth was broken, that one strike was enough. But they were wrong. In just a few days, Earth was reorganizing faster than they could imagine. Nations that had once distrusted each other began to share everything: fuel, data, food, soldiers. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't divided by borders or politics. The world became one unit, a single heartbeat, united by survival. When Helios fully activated, hidden satellites began to glow like distant stars. They locked onto the alien ships with perfect precision. A message was prepared, short and direct. It wasn't a cry for peace anymore. It was a warning. The transmission went out in dozens of frequencies. "To the unknown fleet, you attacked without cause. We will defend our world. Leave now or face the consequences of your actions." The aliens didn't respond. Their massive ships moved again, positioning themselves between the Earth and Moon, as if ready to finish what they started. The atmosphere on Earth grew tense. People prayed, cried, and hoped someone somewhere could find a miracle. But humanity wasn't done yet. The engineers working on Helios discovered something interesting. The alien ships used energy pulses that could be detected and possibly disrupted. Scientists from across the globe collaborated online, decoding every signal, every frequency, every piece of debris they could analyze. Ideas were shared in real time. The world became one giant laboratory. It wasn't about weapons anymore. It was about understanding. Humanity didn't want to destroy, and it wanted to survive, to learn, to adapt. And that was the one thing no empire in the galaxy had ever faced before. A species that learned faster under pressure. As hours turned into days, small victories started to appear. Some satellites managed to block parts of the enemy's communication. One defense drone successfully deflected an incoming plasma beam. A team of programmers figured out how to mirror the alien targeting systems. Piece by piece, Earth began to fight back, not with brute force, but with creativity. People across the world started to believe again. They can bleed, someone whispered on a live stream after the first alien ship appeared damaged in orbit. The clip went viral. Humanity had hope again. The aliens, known later as the Zarthan Empire, underestimated how quickly humans could adapt. To them, Earth was a primitive planet, loud and disorganized. They thought a single strike would be enough to bring surrender. Instead, they had awakened something ancient, human resilience. While Earth's skies remained tense, deep underground another secret project came online, one that very few even within the Council knew existed. It was called Project Erebus. Nobody outside the highest levels knew what it was, only that it had been in development for decades. Under the disguise of an energy research program, rumors spread among military teams that Erebus could change the game. It wasn't meant for attack, it was meant for deterrence, something powerful enough to make any invader think twice before firing again. Engineers worked day and night in silence, guided only by the belief that if this one system worked, it could save billions of lives. Meanwhile, life on Earth carried on, scarred but determined. In small towns, people shared food and built shelters together. Farmers donated crops to refugees. Scientists refused to sleep until they found solutions. Even children wrote messages of hope that spread across the internet. It was no longer about who started the war. It was about who would end it, and how humanity would define itself in the face of extinction. One night, as Earth's defense systems stabilized and the alien fleet hovered motionless, something unexpected happened. The aliens sent their first signal, a simple transmission in a strange musical tone. No words, just a sequence of sounds. Scientists believed it was either a warning or a test. The Council decided not to respond immediately. They needed time to understand. That same night, astronomers noticed a strange movement near the far side of the moon. More alien ships were arriving, reinforcements. The Empire was preparing for another attack. Inside the underground command center, tension filled the air. Every monitor glowed with red warnings. One of the officers looked at the global defense screen and said quietly, "They're not stopping. This time they're coming in full force." The room fell silent. Then the commander stood and said, "Then we give them one last message." And for the second time, Earth's signal reached the stars. It wasn't begging. It wasn't fearful. It was calm, strong, and final. "You attacked our home. We didn't seek war, but we will not fall. This is your only warning, and leave now." Every person on Earth, from the smallest village to the biggest city, waited for what would happen next. The air felt heavy, as if the whole planet held its breath together. The alien fleet didn't move. Not yet. Perhaps they were confused. Perhaps they were deciding whether humans were worth another strike. But down below, humanity was no longer afraid. They had already made their choice, to fight for life, for hope, for the right to exist. The invaders had started the war thinking Earth would be easy to conquer. Instead, they had awakened something far more powerful than they ever imagined: unity. And while the next day would bring battles that would shake the skies, this night, this moment, belonged to humanity. Because for the first time in history, the world had stood as one, and that was only the beginning. The days after the first attack changed the world forever. The air felt different, heavy with tension yet charged with a strange kind of strength. Everyone knew Earth would never be the same again, but instead of falling apart, something remarkable began to happen. Humanity started to rise. After the first strikes, most of the alien fleet had gone silent, as if waiting to see what their attack had achieved. They expected chaos, collapse, and surrender, and for a short while it looked that way. Cities were damaged, communications broken, and people frightened. But beneath all that, something ancient woke up in the human heart: the will to fight for home. The first sign came from ordinary people. Volunteers from different countries began working together without waiting for orders. Engineers rebuilt communication towers. Truck drivers transported food and medicine across borders. People who didn't even speak the same language helped one another with nothing more than gestures and trust. The news channels that had once argued about politics now broadcast messages of unity and hope. A single phrase started appearing everywhere. One Earth, one people. Inside the underground command center, the Council of Nations stayed connected day and night. It was no longer a room filled with politicians. It was a team of humans with one shared goal: survival. The commander of Helios, the global defense network, stood before a glowing map of Earth. Each blinking light represented a country offering help. He looked around the room and said quietly, This is what humanity was meant to be." Slowly, order began to return. Power grids flickered back to life. Emergency shelters grew into strong, organized centers. Supplies moved smoothly across oceans. For the first time in history, no one cared about borders. While people on Earth worked together, the skies above remained tense. The alien fleet hovered between the moon and Earth, silent and still. Scientists suspected they were repairing their ships or waiting for reinforcements. But Earth had no time to waste waiting. Humanity decided to prepare, not for surrender, but for defense. The Helios network expanded. Thousands of satellites were recalibrated to detect every movement in orbit. Engineers reprogrammed weather satellites into defense sensors. Old rockets stored in museums were taken apart and rebuilt into something new. The world's best minds were connected by one secure digital link, the Unity Grid. Through this grid, scientists in one part of the world could share discoveries instantly with others halfway across the planet. It became humanity's collective brain. An engineer from a remote observatory found a way to track the alien energy signatures. A student from another continent discovered that certain frequencies could interfere with the enemy's signals. A team of retired scientists came out of retirement to build prototypes of new shields that could protect cities from orbital strikes. Everywhere, people contributed. No one was left behind. Even small villages powered by generators sent their limited energy data to help refine defense plans. It wasn't just scientists and soldiers who became heroes. It was everyone. The baker who kept feeding workers, the farmer who shared his harvest, the teacher who kept teaching children even in underground shelters. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology. It was its spirit. Within weeks, Earth had done what no alien empire ever imagined possible. It had united. The United Earth Command, or UEC, was officially formed. Its flag wasn't a symbol of any one nation, but of all nations together. A simple blue globe surrounded by stars. The UEC sent out one more message to the invaders. It was short, calm, and unshaken. You struck first, but we are still standing. Leave our world in peace. This is your final chance, the aliens didn't reply. Their silence felt colder than any weapon. And so humanity began preparing for the worst. Spaceports once used for exploration were now filled with military engineers. Factories switched from making cars to building defense drones. Students volunteered to train in data centers, learning to control orbital systems. Even the oceans became part of the defense. Submarines carrying satellite arrays patrolled deep beneath the waves. Despite the looming danger, there was also a sense of purpose that no generation before had ever felt. Humanity was no longer divided by nationality, race, or religion. Everyone simply called themselves Earthlings. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface, Project Erebus continued in complete secrecy. Only a few within the command knew what it was. To outsiders, it was said to be a planetary energy stabilization system. But behind locked doors, scientists whispered that Erebus was humanity's hidden card, a system that could control gravitational energy on a massive scale. If it worked, it would give Earth the power to defend itself against any cosmic threat. But it wasn't ready yet. It needed more time, and time was the one thing Earth didn't have. As the weeks passed, the alien fleet began to move again. The world watched in fear as the ships formed new patterns, like a storm slowly gathering strength. Observatories tracked their every motion, but there was no way to know what they were planning. The UEC held an emergency meeting. The commander looked at the global defense screen filled with red markers. He spoke with calm determination. We have two choices. Wait for them to strike again, or remind them what humanity stands for. The room went silent. Then one of the scientists spoke softly. We should send them a message, and not of fear but of strength. That night a signal was prepared. It wasn't made of words but music, a sequence of tones based on human heartbeats. Every culture's rhythm, every language's pulse combined into one sound. It was humanity's message of unity. The signal was broadcast across all frequencies. It echoed through space, reaching the alien fleet within minutes. No one knew if they would understand it. But for a brief moment, the skies stayed peaceful. On Earth, people gathered outside, looking up at the stars. Some cried, others smiled. For the first time since the invasion, there was a shared feeling, hope. Then, just as the signal faded, something unexpected happened. One of the alien ships blinked, not firing, but flashing a single beam of light toward Earth. A strange rhythmic pulse. Scientists rushed to decode it. It wasn't an attack, it was a response. The flashes repeated 3 times, then stopped. No translation was possible. It could have been curiosity or a warning. Humanity didn't know what it meant. But one thing was certain. The aliens had finally noticed Earth's voice. As days passed, smaller alien crafts appeared near the moon's surface. They seemed to be studying the craters, scanning, collecting samples. The UEC decided not to interfere yet. They needed to know what the Empire wanted before risking another confrontation. During this uneasy peace, human progress accelerated faster than ever before. The Unity Grid gave birth to innovations that normally would have taken decades. Artificial gravity stabilizers, plasma shields, and deep space detection systems became reality within weeks. Humanity had gone from surviving to evolving. Yet everyone knew peace wouldn't last forever. The commander of the UEC often looked out from the observation deck of the underground base, staring at Earth's horizon through a massive display screen. He saw the glow of cities slowly returning, the ocean shining, and thought quietly to himself, "They thought we'd break, but we became something stronger instead." Every child born during that time would later grow up hearing the same story, that humanity was never meant to conquer the stars. It was meant to protect its home among them. Then came the news that changed everything. A massive energy surge was detected from beyond Mars. A second alien fleet was on its way. It was larger, faster, and far more powerful than the first. The calm that had covered Earth turned to cold realization. The Empire wasn't done. They were coming to finish what they started. The UEC immediately went into high alert. Every defense system went online. Helios synchronized with the Unity Grid. Satellites armed their countermeasures. Erebus's team received the order to accelerate development. Whatever it took, it had to be ready. Despite the danger, the people didn't panic this time. They didn't run. They prepared. In every corner of the planet, people worked side by side. Artists painted murals of a united Earth. Children wrote letters to the soldiers watching the skies. Families rebuilt homes stronger than before. Humanity didn't just prepare for war. It prepared to live. And deep in the silence of space, the alien fleet grew closer, their shadows stretching across the stars. But something had changed. The humans they were coming to conquer were no longer scattered tribes on a blue planet. They were one people now, connected, aware, and ready. The aliens had attacked a divided world once. What awaited them now was a united Earth, and the next time they crossed the line, they would finally learn what it truly meant when humanity said, "This is your final warning." The warning signs came slowly at first. A flicker in satellite readings, a sudden rise in cosmic energy, and then the faint shimmer of something massive beyond the orbit of Mars. The second wave was coming. The alien empire had learned from its first mistake. This time they came prepared. Their ships were larger, faster, and heavily shielded. They moved in perfect formation like a swarm of silent shadows crossing the stars. On Earth, the United Earth Command tracked every movement. Inside the underground headquarters, the main screen displayed hundreds of glowing red dots slowly approaching. The atmosphere was tense but steady. There was fear, yes, but it no longer ruled anyone. Humanity was ready. Helios, the global defense network, had grown stronger. Thousands of new satellites now surrounded Earth like a shining net of light. The Unity Grid, that digital brain linking all nations, was fully operational. Every scientist, engineer, and strategist on the planet was connected in real time. The message was clear across the world. We survived the first strike. We will survive the next. As the alien fleet drew closer, human defenses activated. Space stations that once held research labs were now transformed into watchtowers. The International Moon Base became a forward command post, relaying information back to Earth. In the oceans, submarines powered by fusion engines took their positions, ready to support communication relays. But humanity knew that defense alone wouldn't be enough this time. They needed to think differently, to fight smart, not strong. That was when the scientists working on Project Erebus finally stepped forward. After weeks of silent work underground, the project leader appeared before the United Earth Command through a secure holographic link. "Erebus," he said, "is ready for activation, at least a prototype version." No one in the room knew exactly what Erebus could do, only that it had been built as a last resort. But with the enemy fleet closing in, there was no choice left. The commander gave the order. The room fell silent as the signal was sent. Somewhere deep beneath the crust of the Earth, buried inside a cavern surrounded by magnetic fields, a low hum began to grow. It wasn't a weapon that destroyed. It was one that distorted. Erebus was designed to manipulate gravitational energy around Earth, bending it just enough to confuse enemy sensors and distort their targeting systems. Within minutes of activation, the alien fleet's formation began to shift. Their signals started to flicker. For the first time, the invaders hesitated. The humans had just made the battlefield unpredictable, and that was something the Empire wasn't built to handle. While Erebus disrupted the enemy's navigation, humanity launched its next move. Not an attack, but a clever trick. Old satellites disguised as debris began to transmit false energy signatures. From the aliens' view, hundreds of phantom defense stations suddenly appeared around Earth. Their scanners showed targets that didn't exist. It was confusion on a galactic scale. The alien ships fired several test shots at these phantom signals, but nothing happened. Their powerful weapons missed every time. From orbit, their commanders must have wondered what was happening. To them, it must have seemed like magic, but it was pure human ingenuity. Down below, the people of Earth waited in silence. Every home, every shelter, every base watched the sky. Broadcasts continued across all networks, keeping everyone informed. "Stay calm," the announcer said. "We are holding strong. Humanity is united." In the midst of this global tension, something remarkable happened. Music began to spread. Across different regions, people played instruments, sang songs of hope, and streamed them live. It wasn't planned, it just happened naturally. From rooftops, tunnels, and stations, the sound of humanity rose into the air. The message was simple. Even if the world ended tomorrow, humans would not face it in silence. Inside the command center, the officers listened to the faint music playing through background broadcasts. The commander looked at the screen of moving alien ships and whispered, "Let them see who we are." As the fleet approached Earth's orbit, they began firing strange energy bursts trying to scan through the Erebus field. The sky above the upper atmosphere shimmered with waves of light. But every time they tried to target, their readings changed. Their systems couldn't lock on. For the first time, Earth had the upper hand. Then came the moment that changed everything. A small defense drone, launched weeks earlier as part of a test, managed to intercept one of the alien communication signals. The message was short, distorted, but clear enough to be understood after decoding. It said, "Resistance, not expected." The phrase repeated several times, like a system error. That was when humanity realized the truth. The Empire didn't see them as enemies, only as a problem to erase. They hadn't come to negotiate, to conquer, or to rule. They had come to eliminate what they thought was a future threat, and that made the fight even more personal. Every person on Earth had someone to protect. A family, a friend, a stranger who had once offered help during the darkest hours. Humanity wasn't fighting for dominance. They were fighting for the right to exist. The next day, the alien fleet started a full-scale advance. The first wave moved closer, crossing the moon's orbit. But as soon as they entered Earth's range, something unexpected happened. Helios struck back. The satellites once used for weather and science now fired bursts of electromagnetic energy that interfered with alien systems. It wasn't violent, it was strategic. The bursts shut down communication links, blinded sensors, and forced the enemy ships to break formation. One by one, their organized movements turned into confusion. The sky lit up with flashes of light, Not explosions, but fields of static energy as systems collided and overloaded. Humanity didn't celebrate yet. They knew the battle wasn't over. The aliens were powerful and would soon adapt. But in that moment, Earth had shown it could fight back. Across the world, cheers erupted in shelters, cities, and bases. For the first time since the war began, people saw that the impossible could happen. They weren't helpless anymore. Still, the leadership remained cautious. The commander spoke on a global broadcast. "We are not fighting to destroy. We are fighting to protect. We did not start this, but we will finish it with honor. Humanity will endure." The speech spread across every device on Earth. Children repeated the words. Workers painted them on walls. It became the slogan of the age, "Humanity will endure." As hours turned into days, smaller alien ships began retreating to regroup. Their main fleet remained distant, watching silently. Perhaps they were trying to understand this new enemy, the species that refused to die. Meanwhile, inside the Erebus facility, engineers pushed the system to its limit. They realized that by focusing the gravitational distortion, they could create temporary blind zones, invisible shields that no alien sensors could penetrate. It was risky, but it could protect key cities if the aliens attacked again. The test succeeded. Within hours, the first shield covered a small section of the Pacific Ocean. It shimmered faintly like a mirage. For the first time, Earth had a defense that even the most advanced empire couldn't see through. Hope spread faster than fear. But victory came with a cost. Erebus required massive energy. The global grid began to strain. Engineers worked without rest, repurposing every power source possible, solar fields, wind farms, old reactors, to feed the system. Humanity was pouring everything it had into survival. As the alien fleet regrouped, sensors detected their new formation. They were preparing for one final assault, a full-scale invasion to break through Earth's defenses once and for all. The UEC held one last meeting before the storm. The room was filled with exhausted but determined faces. The commander looked around and said, "They still believe we're just another world to conquer. They think we'll beg for mercy. They have no idea who they're dealing with." Outside, the people of Earth carried on with quiet courage. Families stayed close. Soldiers manned their stations. Scientists monitored the skies. And through it all, that same unity, that shared heartbeat, kept everyone moving. When dawn came, the alien fleet finally began its approach. The night sky filled with streaks of light as their massive ships entered low orbit. But Earth didn't flinch. Every defense satellite, every drone, every system activated at once. The skies lit up with energy bursts and flashes of light. Humanity's technology danced with precision, guided by millions of hands and hearts working together. And while the war raged above, on the ground people whispered to each other the same words. They attacked first, but we're still here. The battle was far from over, but something deeper had already been won. Humanity had found itself, its courage, its unity, its voice. The Empire had come to erase a species. Instead, they had awakened a force far stronger than they ever imagined, the collective will of Earth. And as the alien fleet struggled to understand how a single world could stand against them, humanity sent one more message into the stars. You may have power, but we have purpose. Leave now, before you learn what Earth can truly become. The universe had never heard words spoken with such calm strength before. And for the first time, the mighty empire began to hesitate, because they finally understood and the humans weren't fighting out of fear. They were fighting for home. The night before the final confrontation, Earth was quieter than it had been in months. The skies were calm, the winds still, and the stars shone brighter than usual, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Far above, the alien fleet hung in orbit like a dark cloud covering the heavens. It was larger than ever before, stretching from horizon to horizon, silent and unmoving. For 3 days they had been watching. And now, the sensors on Earth confirmed what everyone feared. They were preparing for a final attack. Inside the underground command center, the United Earth Command was ready. Every screen flickered with maps, readings, and communication signals. People spoke softly, their faces serious but focused. They all knew what this moment meant. After months of resistance, humanity had stood its ground. The aliens had thrown everything they had, yet Earth still stood. The people were bruised, tired, and stretched to their limits, but they hadn't broken. And now the world had one last message to give. The commander stood in front of the global communication array. The message he was about to send would travel across the entire fleet. His voice was steady, his eyes clear. "This is our final broadcast to the invading fleet," he said quietly. "Record it. Send it through every channel." The signal went live. "To the empire that struck our home," he began. "We are not your enemies. You attacked without reason, without warning, and without mercy. We tried peace. We tried silence. But you left us no choice. This is your last warning. Leave our system now, or face the consequence of your own actions." The message ended. For several seconds, the room was silent except for the low hum of machines. Everyone waited for a response, but none came. In the cold vacuum of space, the alien fleet remained still. Then slowly, one by one, the ships began to move. The final battle had begun. From orbit, the first wave of energy lit the sky like dawn. The alien fleet fired a powerful burst toward Earth's upper atmosphere, not to destroy, but to break through the Erebus shield. The gravitational distortions trembled but held strong. Inside the Erebus facility, the engineers worked non-stop. The energy readings were off the charts. "The shield is holding," one of them reported, "but it's nearing overload." "Divert all auxiliary power," replied the lead scientist calmly. "We hold as long as we can." While Erebus fought to protect the planet, the Helios satellites began their counter-defense. Thousands of drones and defense units spread across the orbit, fired electromagnetic waves, forming a protective barrier around Earth. It was a light show unlike anything ever seen before. Streaks of blue and silver energy crossing the darkness of space. But the aliens kept advancing. Their ships moved in perfect formation, sending synchronized bursts that rippled through the defense grid. They were adapting quickly. For hours, the battle in orbit became a dance between chaos and control. The humans on the ground could only watch as streaks of light flashed above, each one representing another effort to survive. Yet amidst the chaos, a strange calm filled the command center. No one panicked. No one shouted. Everyone worked together like a single heartbeat. Humanity had reached a kind of peace, not with the enemy, but within itself. And then, the moment came. Deep underground, the energy readings from Erebus began to spike. The gravitational distortion had reached critical mass. The engineers looked at their screens in disbelief. They had created something they didn't fully understand, a field so powerful that it was bending light itself. The lead scientist contacted the commander. "Sir," he said, "we can't hold much longer, but if we release the containment in a controlled burst, we can focus it outward, like a wave." The commander paused. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. "What will it do?" he asked. "It won't destroy them," the scientist replied, "but it will make them feel what we felt. It will show them our strength and what it means to challenge humanity." There was silence for a moment. Then the commander nodded. "Do it." The order was given. The countdown began. Across the planet, everyone felt it, a deep, low vibration that seemed to echo from the center of the Earth itself. For a brief second, gravity felt lighter, as if the world was taking a deep breath. And then, a wave of light erupted from the atmosphere. It wasn't a weapon. It was a pulse. Invisible to the eye but powerful enough to shake the heavens, the wave rippled outward from Earth like a heartbeat. It expanded through orbit, reaching the alien fleet within seconds. The result was immediate. The alien ships began to falter. Their engines flickered, their lights dimmed. Their formation broke apart as their sensors failed to adjust to the sudden gravitational distortion. In the command center, cheers broke out as the readings came in. "They're pulling back," someone shouted. "Their systems are collapsing." But the commander didn't celebrate yet. He stood quietly, watching the display as the massive fleet scattered in confusion. Some ships drifted helplessly while others turned and began to retreat. Humanity had done it not by overpowering, but by outsmarting. For the first time since the war began, the enemy was retreating. The message was clear. Earth was not to be underestimated. All over the world, people rushed outside, staring up at the sky as faint lights moved away from the planet. Social media lit up with messages of relief and disbelief. Children pointed at the stars, asking if it was over. Parents held them close, whispering, Yes, we're safe now. But inside the command center, the celebration was quiet. They knew it wasn't truly over. The aliens would return. Maybe not today, maybe not for years, but they would remember this. And next time it would not be just a battle. It would be a reckoning. The commander ordered a new transmission. This time it wasn't a threat. It was a statement of truth. To those who listen among the stars, he said, his voice steady and calm, Earth does not seek war. But if war is brought to our door, we will not run. We will defend this home, this planet, and every soul upon it. You attacked first, but we warned you last. The message was sent across every channel, echoing through space, traveling far beyond the solar system. That night, for the first time in months, the skies were peaceful. The alien fleet had disappeared beyond the moon's orbit. The battle was over, but even in victory, humanity didn't cheer for revenge. There were no parades, no grand celebrations, only quiet gratitude. People lit candles in memory of those lost. Cities that had been dark for months finally saw light again. Children returned to schools. Farmers returned to fields. Life began to move forward. In the days that followed, the UEC began planning for the future. Erebus was stabilized and studied carefully. It had proven to be humanity's greatest shield, but it also showed them how dangerous their own inventions could be. The world leaders decided it would never be used as a weapon, only as a warning. And that's exactly what it became known as, the final warning. Years later, when historians looked back, they would call this the day humanity earned its place among the stars, not because they conquered, but because they endured. The alien empire had learned a lesson it would never forget. That power without understanding is nothing. And on Earth, the people had learned something even greater, that unity was their true strength. In one corner of the command base, a small digital plaque was installed. It read, "They attacked first. Humanity warned last." It became the motto of a new age, an age not of fear, but of awareness. Scientists resumed their research, this time focusing not on war, but on peace and exploration. Artists painted murals of the Earth surrounded by stars. Children grew up dreaming not of hiding from aliens, but of meeting them one day, peacefully. The world had changed forever, but in the best way. The Empire had come expecting submission. What they found was something no weapon could defeat, the spirit of humanity. And though no one knew if they would return, everyone knew one thing for certain. If that day ever came again, Earth would not tremble. Because the next time someone looked upon the blue planet with hostile eyes, they would remember what happened here, the day the invaders were warned, and the day they finally understood what humanity truly was. And in that silence between the stars, the universe carried Earth's final message, not of anger, but of strength. We do not seek to rule, we only seek to live. But if you come for our home again, this time the stars themselves will remember who warned you first. The weeks after the final warning were filled with a kind of quiet disbelief. Earth was still standing. The skies were clear again, the alien ships gone. For the first time in months, the people of Earth could look up at the stars without fear. But even with the peace, there was a strange silence, as if the world didn't quite believe it was real. The ruins of the cities told the story of what they had endured. Buildings half destroyed, roads cracked, power lines hanging like spiderwebs in the wind. Yet everywhere, people were rebuilding, not just the cities, but their faith in the future. In one of the largest cities, volunteers worked side by side with soldiers, engineers, and even children carrying small boxes of tools. Nobody cared about rank or position anymore. Everyone was equal now, united by the same memory. That night when the world stood together, the news networks broadcast constant updates. Scientists were studying the Erebus field to understand how it had worked so perfectly. Farmers shared stories of how they kept their crops alive during the blackout months. Teachers reopened schools and makeshift buildings, reminding children that hope was stronger than fear. And yet, far beyond Earth, the galaxy had begun to whisper. Other civilizations, ones that had watched from the distance and had seen the flash of Erebus from light years away. They had seen the Empire's fleet retreat, something that had never happened before in all of galactic history. The message that humanity sent had reached further than anyone expected. It traveled through trade routes, smuggler channels, and interstellar signals. Planets that once bowed to the Empire began to question their loyalty. Some even sent secret transmissions toward Earth, though they weren't sure if the humans could hear them. Back on Earth, the United Earth Command received strange signals, coded transmissions in languages no one had seen before. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode them. Slowly, messages began to appear on their screens. "We saw what you did. The Empire retreats. Is Earth open for contact?" It was the first time in history that alien civilizations were reaching out not to conquer, but to talk. Inside the Global Council chamber, the world leaders debated how to respond. Some were cautious, afraid of opening communication too soon. Others argued that humanity had earned a place among the stars and shouldn't hide anymore. The final decision was made with calm reason. They would answer, but carefully. The first message they sent was simple. Earth stands in peace. We do not seek war, only understanding. It was transmitted through a new long-range communication array built using fragments of captured alien technology. The signal traveled through deep space, bouncing off relay stations and dust clouds until it disappeared beyond the solar system. Weeks passed, and then one night, Earth received an answer. It came from a small planet known as Varian, once a loyal member of the Empire. The message was short but powerful. You are not alone anymore. When that message arrived, people across Earth felt something shift. The fear that had gripped humanity for so long began to melt away. For the first time, they realized that maybe the Empire wasn't invincible after all. Soon after, more messages arrived, from different corners of the galaxy. Planets that had lived under the Empire's rule for centuries began to rise in quiet resistance. They had seen Earth, a single small world, stand against an empire that had ruled thousands of stars and survive. The galaxy was changing. Meanwhile, on Earth, scientists and engineers began developing a new kind of spacecraft, one that could travel further than ever before. It wasn't built for war, but for exploration and contact. They called it the Odyssey Project. The first Odyssey ship was built not in secret, but with the help of people from all over the world. Each continent contributed something: technology, design, or resources. It was humanity's way of saying, we survived together. Now we will reach together. The ship was unlike anything Earth had ever created. It could fold space using the same gravitational principles as Erebus, allowing it to travel light years in hours. The goal wasn't to conquer, but to meet, to find the civilizations that had sent those messages of hope. On the day of its launch, millions gathered around the world to watch. The launch site was surrounded by people holding small blue flags, the symbol of the new united Earth. As the countdown began, everyone fell silent. When the engines ignited, the sky filled with light. The Odyssey rose slowly, cutting through the clouds, and disappeared into the stars. The commander who had once sent the final warning stood quietly watching from a hill near the coast. The sound of the ship's engines faded into the wind. For a long time he didn't speak. He just watched the horizon. A young officer approached him. "Sir," she said softly, "do you think they'll come back?" He looked up at the stars. "Maybe," he said. "But this time they'll know what we are, and that makes all the difference." Far beyond, in the distant corners of the galaxy, the Empire was still reeling from its defeat. Inside their great halls, their leaders argued. Some wanted revenge. Others warned that attacking Earth again could mean disaster. Their scientists had studied the energy readings from Erebus, but they couldn't understand it fully. It wasn't a weapon they could copy. It was something new, something unpredictable. They realized that humanity had tapped into forces they didn't yet comprehend. And the most troubling part, the humans had done it in less than a century of space development. That frightened them more than any weapon ever could. The Empire decided to pull back its fleets and focus inward. They called it a strategic pause, but everyone knew it was fear. Meanwhile, small rebellions began to spark across their territory. Colonies that had once been silent began to rise, using Earth's message as a symbol. Graffiti appeared on walls, on ships, on data hubs. 5 words that echoed across the stars. They attacked first. We warned last. The phrase became a movement, spreading faster than the Empire could contain it. Back on Earth, the Odyssey ship sent its first transmission from deep space. The crew had made contact with an independent world that had broken away from the Empire years ago. They were peaceful, curious, and cautious. but they welcomed the humans warmly. They spoke of how they had watched the battle from afar, how they had believed Earth would fall like so many others, and how they were wrong. The humans shared food, language, and stories. For the first time in galactic history, an alien species and humanity sat together not as conqueror and victim, but as equals. When the news of this meeting reached Earth, it was broadcast live. People cried as they watched the footage, humans shaking hands with beings from another world. It was the moment when fear turned into hope completely. The world that had once hidden in bunkers was now speaking to the stars. Months turned into years. Humanity slowly became a respected presence in the galaxy, not because of their weapons, but because of their will, because they had stood when no one else dared to. The galaxy began to change around them. The Empire weakened. Planets once enslaved began forming their own alliances, and through it all, Earth became a symbol of courage and unity. But the people never forgot. They remembered those who had fallen, the nights when the skies burned and the fear that once filled their hearts. Every year on the anniversary of the attack, cities across the world held a moment of silence. Lights were dimmed, and for 60 seconds the entire planet went dark. Then, as the minute ended, every building, every street, every ship lit up at once, billions of lights glowing together, representing one simple truth: humanity survived. The message of that night was written across the world's monuments and carved into the walls of the United Earth headquarters. We do not seek to rule. We only seek to live. But if you come for our home again, the stars will remember who warned you first. The people didn't celebrate war. They celebrated unity. They didn't worship power. They respected peace. But they also carried a quiet strength, the kind that no empire could ever erase. And so the planet that had once been just a blue dot in the galaxy became something greater. Not a superpower, not an empire, but a reminder. A reminder that even the smallest world can change the course of the universe when its people stand together. Far across the stars, where whispers of rebellion grew, the phrase continued to spread. Entire fleets painted it on their hulls. Rebel pilots carried it on their badges. Traitors spoke it in secret. The Empire had attacked first, but Earth had given the final warning. And somewhere, in the silent reaches of space, the echo of that warning still traveled, from star to star, from world to world, reminding every being that sometimes the strongest voice in the galaxy comes from the one that simply refuses to be broken. Years passed after the great warning that shook the galaxy. Earth had changed, not only in power but in spirit. The world that once feared the sky now looked toward it with hope. The scars of war still remained in the cities and hearts of people, but those scars had turned into reminders of strength, not pain. New towers rose from the ruins. Children grew up learning about the day humanity stood as one. Schools taught not only science and history, but also the lessons of courage, unity, and compassion. The world had come together like never before. Countries that once argued over borders now shared resources and technology. The people no longer saw themselves as a divided nation. They saw themselves as one race, one people from one home. At the same time, the galaxy beyond was shifting. The empire that had once ruled thousands of worlds was falling apart. Their fleets were tired, their leaders unsure. The once proud banners of the empire now hung in silence. Everywhere, colonies rose up. They didn't want war and they wanted freedom. And in every rebellion, there was one name whispered among the stars: Earth. The small blue planet that the Empire had once tried to destroy had become the symbol of resistance and hope. But humanity didn't celebrate their fall. Instead, Earth sent envoys and mediators, not soldiers. They reached out to the broken worlds, offering help instead of control. Ships carrying food, medicine, and engineers traveled to planets once ruled by the Empire. And on every planet they helped, one message was spoken again and again: we do not seek to rule. We only seek peace. That message spread further than any weapon could. Soon the old empire began to lose not just territory, but loyalty. Their soldiers deserted. Their fleets refused to fight. Some even surrendered and asked to join the new alliance forming under Earth's guidance. This new alliance wasn't about power or dominance. It was about cooperation. A shared belief that no world should live in fear again. They called it the Council of Worlds. Representatives from dozens of planets gathered in orbit around Earth inside a vast circular station built jointly by humans and other races. The station was named Sol Haven. Its walls were made of silver alloys and crystal glass, with windows showing the curve of the blue Earth below. Inside, beings from across the galaxy sat together for the first time in history. They didn't look alike. They spoke in different tones, moved differently, and thought differently. Yet there was a quiet understanding among them. And at the heart of that meeting, a human representative stood and spoke. His words were calm but carried deep meaning. Once we were afraid of the sky. Then we learned that courage does not come from strength but from unity. We will never forget what happened, not because of anger, but because it taught us who we truly are. From this day on, Earth will never raise a weapon unless it must protect life itself. There was silence for a long moment. Then one by one, the others began to nod. The galaxy had changed forever. Under the Council of Worlds, trade began to flourish. Knowledge was exchanged freely. Worlds that had once been enemies now worked together. Scientists from Earth and alien civilizations developed cures for diseases, built faster ships, and discovered ways to make barren planets bloom again. Children from other worlds even began to visit Earth to study. They walked through the same streets that had once been burned in war, now filled with light, laughter, and peace. But even in this new age, humanity never forgot the lesson of humility. They remembered that it all began with survival, with one desperate stand, one warning that echoed through the stars. The commander who had sent that warning years ago had grown older now. His hair was gray and his voice softer, but his eyes still held the same steady fire. He lived quietly near the ocean, away from the noise of politics and fame. Sometimes he would sit on the shore at night, watching the waves reflect the stars. One evening, as the tide came in, a young visitor from the council arrived, an alien envoy who had studied Earth's history deeply. She asked gently, "Is it true you were the one who spoke the final warning?" He smiled faintly. "It was humanity who spoke," he said. "I was just the voice that carried it." The envoy looked up at the stars. "The Empire fears you still," she said. He shook his head slowly. "Then they haven't learned yet. Fear was never our goal. Understanding was." They sat in silence, the waves crashing softly against the rocks. Above them, the night sky shimmered with thousands of stars. Distant worlds now connected through peace, not war. Far across the galaxy, the remnants of the Empire gathered one last time. Their numbers were few, their spirit broken. Some wanted to surrender, others wanted revenge. But one of their elders spoke a truth none could deny. "We attacked them first," he said. "And they warned us, and not with hatred, but with strength. We thought them fragile, but we were wrong. Their unity is their greatest weapon, and perhaps that is what we feared all along." The Empire dissolved quietly. Its ships were dismantled, its armies disbanded. Some of its people even joined the new council, working alongside those they once called enemies. Decades passed. The story of Earth became legend, taught in schools, sung in songs whispered by travelers who crossed the stars. People called it the Day of the Warning. And every year on the anniversary of that day, Earth and the other worlds held a moment of silence, not to remember war now, but to remember courage, compassion, and the cost of peace. Children would gather under the night sky and look up in wonder. "Do you think they'll ever attack again?" one would ask. The elders always gave the same gentle answer. "Maybe, but this time, the stars know who we are." And above them, in the endless sky, the stars glittered brighter than ever, not as symbols of threat, but as reminders of connection. In time, humanity spread among the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. They built cities on new worlds, planted forests on barren moons, and turned silence into song. Wherever they went, they carried the same words that had once saved their home. "We do not seek to rule. We only seek to live." It became more than a motto. It became a way of life. One day, deep in space, a new signal reached Earth, a message from a distant civilization at the edge of the galaxy. The message said, "And we heard your warning. We have lived in fear for centuries. Teach us how to live in peace." When the message was read aloud in the council chamber, the room fell silent. Then the human representative stood, smiled, and simply said, "We will." That was the moment when the final chapter of the old age closed, and a new one began. An age where knowledge replaced fear, and where unity became the greatest force in the universe. Years later, as historians looked back, they didn't call it the War of the Empire anymore. They called it the Awakening of Humanity, because that was what it truly was. Not the story of destruction, but the story of realization. Humanity had learned that survival was not enough. Compassion was the key that kept them alive. And so the people of Earth continued to look upward, not with fear, but with purpose. The stars were no longer symbols of danger. They were invitations. In every home, in every city, in every classroom, children learned the same final lesson written long ago in the halls of Soul Haven. Courage is not in the weapon you hold, but in the heart that refuses to surrender. That lesson became the heart of humanity's legacy, and somewhere, beyond the edge of known space where new worlds awaited, a single transmission from Earth continued to travel, carrying across time, across galaxies, across civilizations. To whoever hears this, we are from Earth. We remember our past. We honor our peace, and we stand ready to meet you as friends. We have no empire, only a home, and we will protect it with our hearts. Not our hatred. The message drifted onward, a gentle echo through the dark, endless sea of stars. And thus, the story of humanity, the race that was once attacked first, became the race that taught the universe the meaning of its own strength. For in the end, the warning they gave was not just a threat, it was a promise. A promise that life, in all its forms, deserves to exist freely. A promise that no empire, no fear, no darkness can ever erase the light of those who choose unity over destruction. And as that light continued to shine across the galaxy, it carried one final truth, the same truth spoken so long ago, when the sky was filled with fire. They attacked first, but we warned last.